Hey, welcome back to the Ping Pong Flix Show. My name is Chris Wong. This is episode 487 of the Ping Pong Flix Show. Now, Wonder Woman 1984 seems like it's marketing full blast now, at least in terms of Entertainment Weekly. We also had that Tide commercial on Super Bowl. A lot more interviews with the Wonder Woman 84 team, and it just seems like they're trying to push it out early, trying to actually push the marketing for this movie a little bit more, which I'm glad, because that it only works for the DCEU brand by pushing the brand. And what's next is Wonder Woman 1984. Despite that, Birds of Prey just came out last week, and hopefully we'll see a good weekend out of Birds of Prey. But Wonder Woman 1984, full blast. They had an Entertainment Weekly. They had a little expose on it. They actually had the cast talking a little bit about Wonder Woman 1984. Very little, though. Like, so little that I was thinking about showing you an interview, but it really amounts to nothing. I can link the articles and the actual video of the cast talking. Some of them is quite entertaining, but for the most part, it doesn't say anything more than you probably already know. But they do have the emphasis on that the 80s is a big emphasis. In fact, the 80s is very much a character in this movie as the movie itself. So, but aside from that, really nothing we can really talk about. I know there's that picture going around of Cheetah, but I will not show you that. I'll keep my reservations on that until it's officially revealed, so I can talk about it. There's a DMC takedown on any videos, any accounts showing that photo, and even talking about it, as Film Junkie had stated that they took down his video and he'd even show the picture. So I'm not going to even go there. But in any case, Wonder Woman 1984 has released a bunch of different pictures from Entertainment Weekly and things I'll show you right here. Like I said, nothing more than we've already known. Of course, we see Steve Trevor back. This is a shot within the actual movie, in the trailers we've seen. This is shot right here. I pulled that out because I thought it was kind of cool. Yes, a little bit more of the armor that more iridescent than actually just gold in here. So I'm wondering how that works out. But no wings here. But essentially, she has armor here. Rumor has it that she loses her powers, and so she'll need armor to protect herself, or possibly use it for some maybe out of this world fighting, right? And then we get a little bit of, Barbara Minerva and Maxwell Lord here pointing at some ancient rock. I'm going to assume, and just theorize here that this thing, and like you see in the trailers, probably is responsible for, and him too, responsible for Steve Trevor coming back, and responsible for possibly Barbara Minerva becoming the Cheetah character, right? So that's what I'm thinking. And we also get, another picture here from the mall scene. She doesn't put her, finger to her lips or anything like that to say quiet to somebody. We don't know. We're not actually sure what's going to happen in this mall scene, knowing that there's some villains in here. There's some criminals here that she disposes of, takes care of. Aside from that, not much at all from the interviews, not much from the article, not much more from the pictures. And Patty Jenkins really is keeping it tight, keeping it really close to her chest. I know they've talked about a sequel after this, and there is alluding to a present day story, which I think that's possibly the best, the next way to tell the story of Wonder Woman, and so that's coming out as well. And that's about it. We don't know anything more about the film. And it's kind of funny because Gal does say that she doesn't want to say it's a sequel, but it is. It's a very funny thing because it is indeed a sequel. It's a sequel to Wonder Woman, but they're trying to refrain from that for whatever reason. And I think that's just the Warner Brothers thing to try to say, oh, it's a standalone. All these are standalones instead of referring it to as sequels. Even though Birds of Prey was indeed a sequel to Suicide Squad because they do talk a little bit about what happened in Suicide Squad, or at least allude to that, or have little comments that talk about what happened to Harley Quinn previously, right? So I don't know why they're doing that, but trying not to connect it yet connect it at the same time. Like, seriously, make up your mind. You want to connect it, full on blown cameos, get Jared Leto back and whatever, it shouldn't. I don't know why it's so a problem, but I think this is Warner Brothers mentality right now, and we'll see how it affects later on. But from that, I think there's going to be a lot more people excited for Wonder Woman 1984, and I'm expecting Wonder Woman 1984 to do very well, to do actually, much more well than Birds of Prey, of course, but as well as possibly Aquaman. I'm just being very optimistic here. Wonder Woman 1984 is probably a lot more. She's a little bit more popular character. People do love her in the first Wonder Woman movie. It didn't really transfer well to Justice League, but I think Wonder Woman 1984 could be a really successful thing going on here. So we'll see about that and how that turns out. Very interested, very intrigued by what type of story this is, and if we're going to have any of that time travel elements that Grace Randolph alludes to or not. We'll have to wait and see. And we don't have to wait too long. I mean, it's this year, right? It's definitely this year. But Birds of Prey is still going on. And it's going into the second weekend of Birds of Prey. Luis Fernando says industry tracking is increasing projections for Sonic the Hedgehog, now estimating a 40 to 45 million 4-day holiday weekend, opening at the domestic box office. Birds of Prey underperformance could be one of the reasons industry sees Birds of Prey making 23 to 25 million during the same 4-day holiday weekend. I thought it was interesting when he says it, a 4-day holiday weekend. I know President's Day is on Monday, unless you're counting Valentine's Day on Friday as part of 4-day holiday weekend, which I'm wondering, do people not work on Valentine's Day? I don't know if that's actually the case, but in any case, it's going to be a 4-day holiday weekend. 23 to 25 million sounds a lot, but remember, he's putting in 4 days as opposed to 2 to 3, which is like Friday, Saturday, Sunday weekend. He's pulling in Monday as per that. So a lot more chances for people to go out and watch, go out in theaters to watch Birds of Prey. So hopefully there's a little up. There's an uptick already, 23 to 25. That's pretty good. As a movie, not for a brand. Like if you check out my last video, I talk a lot about the difference between a successful or at least a fair, good gross profit movie as a movie when you're comparing budgets to how much it made worldwide, but as an overall look for the brand, which is DC or DCEU, there's a difference right there. But Sonic the Hedgehog, yeah, I'm definitely going to watch Sonic the Hedgehog. My kids are begging me to take them to watch Sonic the Hedgehog, so that's definitely what we're going to go and watch. Although industry still believe in a good hold for Birds of Prey, it could end up not being the case. Birds of Prey has been performing behind John Wick 2, who made 19 million in its second day, 4-day President's Weekend in 2017. I wouldn't be surprised if the Harley Quinn flick grosses a similar number. So there you have it, Birds of Prey. Speaking of Harley Quinn, we have spotted her, the fans have spotted her filming for the Suicide Squad. So the Suicide Squad is definitely filming right now. She's over there. She's got a nice red dress, red and black, very Harley Quinn-esque in terms of comics. We know James Gunn's right there. We know he's very much deep in comic comic lore. He is a big nerd himself. We do see her here. There was a short video, but I've seen people getting taken down for that, so I don't know if I will show it. She's holding some kind of javelin, and then if you look closely, she is bleeding down her nose. So we also see John Cena here as Peacemaker, looking huge, mighty huge, big tough guy in shorts and shirt, but you got to see some Humvees here, so definitely some kind of operation taking place. John Cena as the Peacemaker, and here again Margot Robbie as James Gunn's Suicide Squad. You see the bleeding down here. She still has those tattoo elements to her. A little bit more red and black hair there, just like in the comics. And I think that's pretty much about it in terms of photos that people have taken so far. So, well underway. Margot Robbie is Harley Quinn, hands down. I can't really see anybody else as Harley Quinn right now. Margot Robbie is to Harley Quinn as Hugh Jackman is to Wolverine. So that's a great plus. That's a great thing. Either way, how you look at the Birds of Prey performance, she's definitely Harley Quinn. What's interesting to see is how James Gunn's The Suicide Squad is going to perform in the box office in relation to what's going on with Birds of Prey right now. Because people were saying Harley Quinn sold the first Suicide Squad movie, and Birds of Prey was going to be successful off of that. And other industry people are saying, well, because of Suicide Squad, that's why nobody's going to watch Birds of Prey. So we'll see what the Suicide Squad, the sequel, which I believe it is a sequel, is going to turn out. How are people going to come out to watch this movie? Or for general audiences, they don't necessarily know, oh, it's a James Gunn movie. They don't necessarily know, oh, that's the guy who made Guardians of the Galaxy or whatever. They're just going to go with whatever marketing pushes for them, right? I don't know if this is still going to be a rated R movie, or are they going to change their things where they're going to try to make it PG-13 instead. We'll have to wait and see. Although that also doesn't really detract people from going to watch these comic book movies. Also Deadpool, right? Logan did fairly well. But so it doesn't really stop you from watching these movies. So we'll have to wait and see what the marketing push for this. How much are they going to push it out? Are they going to make Harley Quinn the center of the story? Or are they going to put the team in front? Are they going to put John Cena in front? Are they going to put Idris Elba in front? Who are they going to actually try to push? Or are they going to push it as a team lineup? Kind of like David Ayer's Suicide Squad, even though Will Smith did take a big portion of it. But we'll have to wait and see who is how they're going to market the Suicide Squad to get more people in their seats, right, and to watch this movie. So let's talk a little bit about Warner Max. Okay, let's talk a little bit of Warner Max. This is coming from The Hollywood Reporter. I think it's more of an editorial piece than anything like that. With Warner Brothers and Warner Max, is AT&T setting up a sibling rivalry? I'm going to read this to you, and I'm also going to give you a little bit from John Aaron Garza, who actually put out a sole opinion that actually could mean very well for the Snyder Cut. It's a theory, so take that with a grain of salt. But as Warner Media's streamer HBO Max preps for a May launch, a new film division will become a direct pipeline and could spark awkward internal politics. It says something about the state of the industry in general and the state of Warner Media in particular that the announcement of Warner Max, a unique joint venture between HBO Max and Warner Brothers film studio that will produce up to 10 movies a year for the new streaming service, was not greeted with joy in the town. That's interesting. A customer for up to 10 movies a year would seem like a blessing at a time when it's harder than ever to get a green light for anything other than a comic book movie or sequel. But the news wasn't received that way. Instead, executives, agents, and producers reacted to what appears to be an opaque structure and possibly an exercise in misdirection. It does seem like too many people on a press release screwing in light bulbs, said one executive with long-standing ties to the Warner's film studio. The Warner Max announcement February 5th mentioned 6 top executives who, with their teams, will create dynamic and compelling films that draw on the depth and scope of the creative resources across Warner Media, in the words of Toby Emmerich, chairman of Warner Brothers Picture Group. That reflects an intention to break down the long siloed culture of the studio and its parent company. To be fair, Hollywood is in such a state of anxiety that possibly nothing can make insiders feel optimistic. The industry is facing existential questions due to the disappearance of legacy studio Fox in the wake of the Disney acquisition, which has many in Hollywood feeling like a limb was amputated. Then there is a massive disruption of the streaming revolution, the long-running fight between agents and writers, and the looming threats of a writer's strike. And now industry veterans fear that another legacy studio, Warner Brothers, is being ever so slowly metabolized by HBO Max. Not that Warner still will stop making movies, but many believe it will make fewer in a much narrower range. Is the new corporate owner, AT&T, going to give Warner's the proper resources they need? Asked an executive with significant ties to the studio. Warner Brothers has long been the gold standard of the industry on a lot of levels. If this were a lesser studio, you'd be like, oh well. Adding to the concerns that the fact that the film studio has been on a cold streak, with Warner Birds of Prey disappointing performance setting off a noisy round of internal finger pointing. Warner sold off 50% of its big hit 2019 hit Joker. The studio does have some potential hits coming, including the Wonder Woman sequel and Lin-Manuel Miranda's In the Heights. Perhaps ironically, the Warner Max reveal seemed designed to quell fears that Warner will be dominated by HBO Max executives. Warner Bros. CEO Ann Sarnoff's name went first, before that of Robert Greenblatt, chairman of Warner Media Entertainment and direct-to-consumer. But that doesn't alter the consensus of the town. HBO Max is the locomotive here, says one veteran producer. That's what matters to AT&T. Everything is dictated by the needs of HBO Max. So how will Warner Max operate in terms of management? Pay close attention. HBO Max's Kevin Reilly will share greenlight authority with film studio chief Emmerich. Reilly would already seem to have plenty to do. His full title is Chief Content Officer, HBO Max, and President TNT, TBS, and True TV. He's also a television veteran who lacks film experience. The person on the HBO Max side who has been designated the liaison between HBO Max and the Warner's film studio is Jessie Henderson, Executive VP Original Feature Films. She formerly was co-president of Paul Feig's a production company, and has credits on his 2018 film A Simple Flavor and the 2017 Amy Schumacher vehicle Snatched. She will jointly report to Sarah Aubrey, HBO Max's head of original content, and Warner Brothers COO. Carolyn Blackwood. The announcement of the Warner Max structure is not clear regarding the roles of Aubrey and Blackwood. It simply says Emmerich and Reilly will work in close collaboration with them. Sources say Blackwood has been named Warner's liaison with the HBO Max side, so presumably she will be liaising with Henderson, who, remember, reports to her and Aubrey. Got all that? This arrangement elicited a disparaging adjective from a leading agent that can't be repeated. As much as I hate Disney, he says, you look at what they're doing with Disney Plus, and there seems to be sort of seamlessness, right? There are many fundamental questions raised by the joint venture. What is an HBO Max movie, and what will stay with Warner's for a theatrical release? Will HBO Max make movies outside of the joint venture? Will Warner's attempt to shorten theatrical windows in deference of the streaming service? And who's running this show. Sources says Warner's film execs initially thought HBO Max, which launches in May, might give them an opportunity to make films that were in development but no longer seem right for theaters, right? The studio has already announced that the Melissa McCarthy comedy Superintelligence will bypass multiplexes and debut straight to HBO Max. But naturally, those on the HBO Max side are wary of seeing the streaming service used as the dumping ground, like Netflix. A studio insider dismisses that. Deciding which films are for the studio and which belong to streaming is going to be intuitive. A judgment call, or a coin toss, this person says, but plenty of the studio's material will be used by Warner Max. For decades, going back at least to the Warner Communications era, the culture at the company has been marked by divisions that remained separate and siloed. With Warner Max, an effort is underway to convince the two entities to cooperate. The thinking at Warner's is that HBO Max will have a competitive edge because it will utilize Warner's infrastructure, including a physical production. So at this point, the joint venture Warner Max has yet to announce its first title. I'm going to skip all that. Despite the Hollywood angst, a Warner Media insider says the hand-wringing over the Warner Max initiative is misplaced, as the initiative will offer life to 10 movies a year that otherwise might not find a home. Given these days of the big blockbusters, he says, this seems to present a great opportunity for storytellers. Okay. But one industry veteran who works closely with the Warner's film studio raises the biggest question of all. Will all the resources being plowed into the HBO Max streaming service pay off? I don't know how it can be Disney Plus or Netflix, the person says, and if that's the case, then what? So, what do we gather from here? Well, like we said, there's two entities here. One is Warner Brothers, and one is Warner Max. Warner Max is a new division set up to create content for HBO Max. Warner Max can use Warner Brothers resources to create those things for Warner Max, right? As in this, the streaming service wars is underway. Disney Plus is coming out strong with things like Mandalorian. They're setting up Obi-Wan, all this types of things. You see the WandaVision. They're getting Marvel type movies out there as well into the streaming service. Netflix has their own streaming service, and that is the war that AT&T wants to fight. So you got this AT&T, you got this Warner Media Group, and they're the heads over these two different companies, divisions, right? And they pretty much have their own executive teams on each side, Warner Brothers and Warner Max, right? Even though they're trying to say we're sharing some of the stuff here, but I think there's still someone overarching, controlling one side, and the other one's controlling the other. So what does that mean? Why does that matter to the Snyder Cut? Why does that matter to Zack Snyder's Justice League and Warner Brother and DCEU altogether? I like John Aaron's one, right? John Aaron had put out a theory today, and I'd like to read it to you. Whether you agree or disagree to this, this is just a theory from John Aaron, and I kind of like where it's going. Whether this is happening or not, we have no idea. But it does pull in favor of Snyder Cut, although it may seem like some execs that we've been trying to talk to probably weren't listening. But, Zack kind of knew where to go, right? So this is John Aaron's theory. Warner Max is its own film studio now. Warner Brothers were hoping they could give them films they didn't want to make or had a market for. Warner Max is saying, we're making our own films, so we don't need your leftovers. And Warner Brothers execs are worried Warner Max will take all their funds for projects that Warner Brothers normally has. So now, execs for Warner Brothers are upset because they're losing power because of the AT&T merger, which is why they're saying HBO Max can't compete with Netflix and Disney Plus. Okay, just like execs were trying to say, the Snyder Cut doesn't exist. Warner Brothers execs. We're trying to say Snyder Cut doesn't exist. And if, I'm saying if for certain reasons, because I know he did, Zack met with anyone about this film, it would have been AT&T execs he could have met with, not Warner Brothers execs, meaning it would be Warner Max that would be getting his film and anything else he wants to make, not Warner Brothers. And because it's all owned by the same company, Warner Max doesn't have to get permission to use the rights of the characters. If they want, meaning they could release Snyder's JL while Warner Brothers releases their Batman in theaters. Ergo, why I believe we'll begin seeing all of these big IPs moving to streaming instead of theaters, because that's how you win the streaming war. Exclusive content you can't get anywhere else. Warner Max would be the first to occupy that space, and with Snyder and Helmet would dominate. I love that optimistic thinking. Warner Max. Now, you're saying, well, what about my theater movies, right? Well, I want to watch Snyder Cut in theaters. Now, Warner Max will do it, right? And then I don't know if you remember from the other article, and I think it may have said in this one as well, but Warner Brothers is in charge of other physical distributions, other means of distribution of content that Warner Max makes. It's almost like it's saying, AT&T is saying, you don't want to make those movies that we want you to make, Warner Brothers? All right. Hey, Warner Max, we created you to be a division that will make movies and TV or any content that we want to make that these guys over here, Warner Brothers, don't want to do. What did say you? Oh, by the way, we are using your facility, Warner Brothers. Okay, you have no say for that. And despite you don't want to make it, Warner Max is going to make it, and you guys are going to have to distribute it. Sorry, because we're AT&T and we own your ass. I like that. I like that mentality very, very much. And I don't know if that means it's a fuck you to Toby Emmerich, but I hope it does. I hope it means. As I said, Carolyn Blackwood, Ann Sarnoff has put Carolyn Blackwood to do some duties or take over duties that Toby Emmerich is doing, right? But they're keeping the name Toby Emmerich in there, because they can't show that another exec is getting fired. They can't fire him. They can either promote him or put him on the sidelines and say that he's involved in some way. But judging from this and judging from how Warner Brothers insiders are not too happy that they're losing power, losing shares, right? And AT&T is coming in saying, guys, you know there's this Snyder Cut. You know there's this Zack Snyder's Justice League that trended and it seems like people want to make it. You know, we don't give a shit about your ego. So we're going to develop this division, Warner Max, to make it because we believe that there is a lot of money to be had with this content. Zack Snyder's content. And guess what? We're going to make it. We're going to fund it. And you guys over there, Warner Brothers, are going to have to lend us your resources. And if we want to put in theaters, if you want to do physical distribution, you guys are going to have to do it. Because we own your ass. I love that. That's kind of awesome. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for subscribing. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.